Aloha, this is me, MarkO, talking, and I welcome you to Dances with Dragons, a GreenHeart Foundation podcast. In this podcast, you will hear about my real-life stories and adventures, together with the exciting current projects of our GreenHeart Foundation. So, sit back, relax, and get ready to listen. Aloha, and here we are. I'm so excited that I am walking into Bodha Stupa, about 8 kilometers outside of Kathmandu. All of a sudden, I'm walking into the temple. I'm blown away by the magnificence of it. There are people day and night doing their kora, it's called, a circumambulation around the temple, spinning prayer wheels, doing prayers and incantations, and I'm excited. I'm learning everything like a kid, asking questions, and they said, we're going to introduce you to someone very special. So I'm meeting Jamgong Kongtrul, who I find out is one of the leading young Rinpoches, who was regent to the Karmapa, and they were particularly connected with some of these exciting stories I was about to hear about Bhutan in particular, even though he's Tibetan. And so I'm excited. And there's a few of these Rinpoches and lamas, and I couldn't tell the difference. And I was going to learn, how do you know someone's a monk or a lama or the highest level of Rinpoche, Tulku incarnate Rinpoche, and do the niceties. Walking in, I'm told you're given a white scarf, usually made out of silk or cotton. It's got Buddhist symbols woven into, brocaded into the scarf. And you present that to the teacher or to the master, and he takes it and blesses it and then puts it back over your head. And that's your particular blessing scarf to carry with you. They also do things like putting a red knotted cord around your neck that's got special prayers. And in Laos, they do red cords that are usually put around wrists. So these are acknowledgments from a teacher that you're part of a ceremony, and this is your souvenir. This is what you carry out with you. So I present Rinpoche with the scarf called kata, and he puts the scarf back over my head. I sit down. Believe me, I started learning how to sit for hours at a time, cross-legged, on a cushion, a flimsy cushion underneath your okole bottom. And I'm now telling him, they said, what is your interest? Why are you wanting to meet this Rinpoche? And I said, because of Bhutan. And I mentioned that I had been part of a class with a teacher named Carlos Castaneda, who was one of the remarkable legends of writing stories, book after book, about a shaman that he met in northern Mexico in the desert. Very fortuitous how he was able to meet and begin to be a student and understudy of who became known as Don Juan, the teacher. And so I'm now learning that they have similar. You go in and you can talk to the master, you can ask questions, you can ask for blessings or prayers, but it's not always, how do I get money, or, grandma's sick, I hope you can do a prayer and she gets better. That's possible. But they are particular when you show interest in their Buddhist studies and understand the teachings and how the mechanism of Buddhism operates. I recall saying to the Rinpoche that my previous teacher sent me on my quest to find these esoteric lands around the world, 3 lands of the dragon. And Rinpoche just looked at me, and he had, of course, Tsetan was a translator. They had numerous people always around them that could translate into Nepali or translate into Sanskrit or English or French. Matthew Ricard became a very famous translator for Dalai Lama and Dingo Khenzi Rinpoche, and he's still alive and someone I hope to reconnect with because because he was part of a ceremony I had in Bhutan with one of the other major Rinpoche leaders of Buddhism called Dingo Khyentse Rinpoche. But now I'm with Jamgon Kongtrul, who's the regent who turns out to be the Karmapa, becomes my root Lama teacher a few years later. 5 years later, I get initiated into Buddhism with the teacher of Jamgon Kongtrul. But he looks at me and he says, "Oh, so you're on this quest." He was translating. He did speak very good English at a young age, and his English became impeccable years later when we met up again in California. But that's another story, when I kept connecting with Jamgon Kongtrul. But he said, 3 lands of the dragon. He said, if you're that interested in Bhutan and dragons, you have to find the 3 dragons where they live in Bhutan. There's a land of 3 dragons called Bhutan. They have 3 dragon kings. I said, but I heard they had a coronation and this young 18-year-old boy, Jigme Singye Dorji Wangchuk, became the 4th king of Bhutan at the age of 18. He's the dragon king. He said, there are 3 other dragon kings. And if you're destined to find them, there are treasures that you will find from these dragon kings. And I said, well, where do I meet them? He says, you won't, because 2 of them, it's a very dark, esoteric story that I will share another time. But there were 2 that were disappeared. They weren't known to be somewhere physically living in the human body form. And only 1 who is still surviving of the 3 dragon kings, called Dharma Rajas, who are the practitioners, Dharma, the teachings of Buddha. Raja means king. So they were the religious king. And they were, this one surviving one was in exile from Bhutan. All of a sudden that sends up a bunch of questions in my cultural anthropological mind. How can a dragon king be exiled from the very country that he's born into? Another story, another day, you will hear about that. But I'm fascinated, where is this dragon king living? And they said the word Kalimpong. I've never heard that word. I thought that sounds cute. I like the sound of it, Kalimpong. Sounds exotic. Well, they said that's a little town. You have to first go through Darjeeling. Well, I said, Darjeeling? I've heard of Darjeeling tea. Is there any connection? Yes, that's where they grow the famous tea from the British setting up tea estates 150 years before in India. Darjeeling, Kalimpong. And I realized there's going to be a quest, because this Dharma Raja, the Buddhist king of Bhutan, is having a monastery in Kalimpong, northeast India, which is just on the border of Bhutan. And he said, you have to go there. You have to meet him. And I said, I'd be honored to meet him. How do I get there? I had 100 questions. What do I do? And I said, will he accept me? And he said, I'm going to do a divination for you. And all of a sudden, I was told later by Seton and Benny that I was so fortunate that he wanted to do what's called a mo'o. I believe it's M''O''O, or MO''O'. A mo'o is what they do, which is like channeling a divine voice or force. They literally go into a trance with a question or a concept in their mind. They close their eyes, from what I had seen numerous times, and he was going to perform a divination to see into the future, to see if could I be accepted, worthy of, let's say, meeting this incarnate dragon king who is in exile in northeast India. So they started doing this whole preparation. Different candles and incense are lit, altar candles, butter lamps they're called. And before I know it, he's going into a trance and rocking back and forth with his eyes closed. And I just felt he's like channeling some entity. And it was simply calling upon what is MarkO's path on a quest of now 3 dragons, the land of 3 dragon kings. He wants to go to Bhutan. By the way, this is 1975. Bhutan is a closed country. It was its own nation. Bhutan is one of, I believe there's 4 countries in the world that have never been conquered by another country. Bhutan is one. Thailand is another. These are 2 Buddhist nations that have Buddhist kings, and they were unconquered. So go figure. So I'm very enthralled to realize I'm going to be, it'll be determined if I'm fit, if I'm worthy, if I'm called upon, if it's my calling to pursue this path of the dragon. And so this divination is taking place, this channeling. I'm not asked any questions except you're interested in dragon kings and dragon land, and Bhutan is the land of the thunder dragon. And there are 3 treasures. He then reports after the divination, which just felt like 15, 20 minutes, and rocking back and forth, and the other lamas are doing chants and prayers. And so when the divination finished, he went right into, you're on a quest of these dragon kings, and 2 of them are missing. And I'm trying to learn all this. I have no clue. I'm just writing down a few notes to then elaborate on later. But I'm being told that there are different people who are on a Buddhist path, not just as students, not just practitioners of Buddhism, not just as a wannabe monk who wants to practice for decades or years and years and meditate and go to all the teachings and then could be accepted and initiated into Buddhism. This was something called, he said, there are people who are on a path in life to discover treasures and to reveal treasures. And that person is called a terton, Terton, a terton. And the treasure that they find is called Terma. So ter is the word for treasure, but ter is also the word for goddess. It's the number 13 in Sanskrit. In Latin, it's earth, Mother Earth. Terra firma is Mother Earth's, the firm land that we walk on around the world. And so I'm being told that there is this concept called terton, terma, and then he said another word that I didn't find out till later, but that other word was called gong ter. Again, using the word ter, treasure. Gong was mind. And so, again, I'll get back to what the mind treasures. How do you find a mind treasure? This is something that is very esoteric sounding to me and very enticing for me to learn more. But I'm told that these 3 dragon kings, 2 of which are disappeared or missing or unknown, the translation was still vague and I was still vague in them wanting to share some of these very dark so-called secrets of why Lama kings disappear. Where do they go? Can they be found again? And I'm showing interest in this path. And I was told that if I'm really interested to pursue this, that they will set it up and that they'll send someone with me. It could even be Jamgon Kontrol. I can go out to Kalimpong, way the heck out of Kathmandu, out on the borders of the Himalayas of Bhutan, and meet with the Shabdung himself, if he would see me, because of what was going to be introduced as this young man is on a quest of dragons and dragon kings and dragon art. There were treasures that were left that were dragon treasures. I thought they were books because they said there would be teachings there would be symbols, there would be lost treasures that would be discovered. And it turns out it's not only a script that was written and hidden in a cave or put away somewhere for future generations. When a treasure discoverer, a tertan, discovers this. Thank you for listening to Dances with Dragons. I hope you all enjoyed my stories of the adventures of a modern-day Marco Polo. Join us next week to listen to more exciting real-life stories. If you enjoyed our podcast, please leave us a review and share it with others. To learn more about us, please visit our website at greenheartfoundation.org and follow our social media accounts. See you next week.